Universal credit is being linked to an increase in mental health problems to those who are unemployed. That's the finding of a 9-year study into universal credit, the first of its kind to examine the psychological impact of the benefits system, which was launched in 2013 in a bid to simplify benefits payments and help more people into work. But with reports of long delays in payments and increased use of sanctions, researchers from the University of Liverpool suggest universal credit has negatively affected people's mental health. The government says the report does not prove that the poor mental health of claimants is a result of the way universal credit is designed. Sarah Spohr is a full-time carer to 2 disabled sons. She says the universal credit system has left her emotionally broken. We're also joined by Alex Tiffin, a disabled universal credit claimant in Inverness who struggled when universal credit payments were delayed. He says he attempted suicide when things were at their worst. Professor Ben Barr is senior author of the study from the University of Liverpool, and Ayaz Manji is senior policy officer for the mental health charity Mind. Welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. Sarah, what difference did the introduction of universal credit have on your family financially?
Well, my older son went onto universal credit about 2.5 years ago, and that we lost £2,500 income with £2,000 recurring. And then my younger one is moving on to universal credit, and I will also be forced onto universal credit as when he turns 20. And so I'm expecting more loss, more stress, more pressure. I never used to be someone who would go to the GP, and now I'm now talking to the GP every week and mental health nurse. It's the cumulative impact of all these issues, PIP, abuse from services who withhold funding, for instance, for paying for nurses for my children, and then universal credit is just another thing. So I'm just thinking my whole summer is going to be involved in a fight with universal credit.
So it's the personal independence payments and other issues as well. I mean, the government says, because this report is linking mental health issues directly with the universal credit, it sounds like it's difficult for you to put it directly at that door, but it's a part of a picture.
Well, that's going to be my up-and-coming issue for the next few months. I've got a friend who works in the Citizens Advice Bureau in a job centre dealing solely with universal credit, and he said yesterday it's driving people nuts. You know, they don't get the first 5 weeks, obviously for some 4 or 5 weeks. They then don't get the first week, and people are very vulnerable who often apply for universal credit. Yeah. And he's seen increase in sick notes from GPs. And
when you say that you're going to the GP a lot now, what is life like for you now? How is this pressure impacting on you? What is it? You know, how do you feel on a daily basis?
It makes me feel suicidal often.
Really?
Yeah. You know, it's and that's been going on for years because I've been fighting every single thing that a disabled person needs, or for disabled, someone in the family, is a fight. Even to get your freedom pass renewed, for my older son was a performance. And everything you're having to provide evidence, every form you fill in, for instance, a universal credit form, is slightly different from the PIP form, so you can't do a stick and paste across from one to the other.
So the bureaucracy, it sounds, is consuming you, let alone the fact that you've got 2 disabled sons to care for.
Yes.
Alex, what impact has universal credit had on you?
Hi there. Well, when I initially went onto universal credit, I was moved over from ESA because I'm disabled and I have a mental health condition. And they decided after 9 years that I was fit to work, despite my doctor saying I wasn't. And because I made the mistake of taking the advance, this left me with £190 a month for my bills and for my food. And I have children who I see, and my mental health slowly started to decline, because I couldn't afford to see my children, I couldn't afford to feed myself, and it got to a point where I was writing in my universal credit diary, begging for help for food, and they said, I quote, "Food is not a reason that we would provide financial help." And I was like, if they're not going to help me, who is? And it broke me, and I attempted on my life, and luckily I'm here now, but it's not just that, it's the work capability assessment, of which I've got another one coming up, and it's already starting to stress me out and cause me problems.
Professor Barr, you're the senior author of this study. I just want to read to you a statement. It's fairly long, but I'll read the whole thing from the Department of Work and Pensions, saying this research does not prove that people are experiencing distress due to the design of universal credit. People coming to the job centre are often doing so at a difficult time in their lives, and there is a range of support available for those with mental health conditions. We know that the vast majority of people on universal credit are satisfied with their experience. This report may show that people in an area with universal credit are experiencing higher levels of distress, but it does not prove that this is causally due to universal credit. It's likely they're experiencing distress due to the external factors, such as a loss of job, relationship breakdown, or changes in the labour market of their area. How do you respond to that statement?
Well,
yes, thank you.
About food banks.
Sorry, Alex. I was just putting that to Professor Barr. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, we've heard some really harrowing stories of how universal credit and other parts of the benefit system are negatively affecting people's mental health. So, I mean, we looked at how the staggered rollout of universal credit across the country and used that to look at whether the introduction of universal credit in an area led to an increase in mental health problems amongst people who were eligible for the benefit compared to people who weren't. So, and we saw a marked increase in mental health problems amongst the unemployed as universal credit is introduced into an area. You know, of course, we can't prove with complete certainty that those effects are due to universal credit, but it's incredibly likely, and there's no other particular explanation as to why the mental health of the unemployed should suddenly get worse just at the time when universal credit was being introduced in an area.
So what's your conclusion? Sorry, do you think that this is enough evidence to say that universal credit needs to be looked at?
I think clearly the government keeps on pushing forward with these major welfare policies that affect millions of potentially vulnerable people without first investigating whether they're having an adverse effect on people's mental health. So crucially, the first thing the government should do is to robustly assess what impact universal credit is having on people's mental health before they further roll out the benefit to millions of other people.
Ayaz, you're here from the mental health charity Mind. What's your view of this? It sounds like that, whether the government believes this can be directly pinned on universal credit or not, it sounds like there is an increase in the number of people suffering from mental health issues, which obviously is affecting lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for us at Mind, the findings from the research aren't particularly surprising. They reflect what people are telling us each and every week. We are constantly hearing from people who are struggling to cope with the impact of claiming universal credit. And we can see some specific aspects of how universal credit works, which are leading to that. One of them is the 5-week wait for payments, and as we've already heard, how people struggle to cope during that time. Another is that requirements to look for work and to attend job centre appointments are more intensive in universal credit, particularly for people who are experiencing problems with their health.
When people are reporting problems with their health, is there sympathy with those in the system who are dealing with them?
There can be from individual members of staff, but the more fundamental problem is the system isn't designed to respond to people's needs. So when people are reporting health conditions, we are still seeing people who can be required to turn up to job centre appointments at a stage in their life where people might be struggling to even leave the house. So whether or not individual staff members are sympathetic, vulnerable people are being put at risk by a system which doesn't have the appropriate safeguards in it.
Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you.